Dear students, welcome to this massive open online course on economic development 2. Today in this model we shall discuss economics and politics of multilateral trade, third part. Already we have discussed about this topic, and after the completion of this module, you will be acquainted with some of the dynamic gains from the regional trade among member countries. You can understand different phases of regional trade. You can realize the political underpinning behind the formation of regional trade agreements, and you will be capable of analyzing whether regional trade can be considered as the stepping stone for multilateral trade in the world. Now, what are the dynamic gains from regional trade agreements? The first is increasing rate of product innovation. What is product innovation? When you adopt some invention in a commercial way, we call it innovation. So if you create new types of products according to the changing preference pattern of the society, we call it product innovation. So when different member countries, they form such trading bloc, then it becomes easier for them to evolve those new types of products. Okay, we have already discussed about the varieties. Here we want to point out the gain those countries can have from the product innovation or the process innovation. Okay, there can be productivity gain also with the enlargement of the market size. For example, when the scale of output in any industry increases because of large-scale production, there can be division of labor, and the labor productivity can also increase through that process. Next is another dynamic gain is from the relocation, okay, and agglomeration of industries. Some industries, they will relocate their unit, okay, production unit in a market which have locational advantage. So this relocation will create an agglomeration of some of the industries in some part of the globe, and that will also lead to a low transaction cost of those firms, and the locational advantage will lead to the greater advantage for the region as a whole. Okay, and additional gain will arise from the formation of customs union, because through the formation of customs union, the market power of the relatively small economies or less developed countries will rise, and normally higher external tariff on non-member countries would also lead to welfare gain for the smaller member countries. Okay, we have already discussed that in some of the trading bloc, they continue with a common external tariff policy for non-member countries, and that is actually gainful for smaller this members within that trading bloc. And this may even outweigh the welfare reducing impact of trade diversion effect. So whenever you form this type of trading bloc, we have already discussed, there can be trade diversion impact which is injurious in that particular sense. So you can well outweigh that negative impact through this positive dynamic gains from the formation of the regional trading bloc. The next one is gains from the formation of common market. As we have already indicated, when the member countries, they form the common market, that means they allow the free movement of factors of production. Now, normally in the international trade theory, it is suggested that if you allow free movement of goods and services across border, then ultimately through trade there will be factor price equalization. How? Because if there is equalization in the relative price of the commodity, for example, there are two commodities, X and Y, which are being exchanged between country A and B, and ultimately through trade, if that prices are equalized, then those commodities they use different factors. For example, some commodity may be capital intensive, some commodity may be this labor intensive. So ultimately that price ratio, for example, the price of X and price of Y, Px by Py, which is the relative price of X, can ultimately lead to the relative wage rate. Okay, W if that is the average wage rate, and R is the rental for capital, then wage rental ratio can ultimately be equalized. That is called factor price equalization. Now, If for some reason or other this free trade cannot lead to factor price equalization, then this formation of common market will help those member countries. Here I have used this diagram. In this diagram, please see this left hand corner indicates the origin of the foreign country, and the right hand corner indicates the origin of the home country. This VMPL curve indicates the value of marginal productivity curve of labor for the foreign country, and VMPLH curve indicates the marginal value of marginal productivity of labor for the home country. Now, because of inequality in the factor prices, for example, here we are considering labor, the wage rate in the foreign country is WF, and they are employing L0 amount of labor, and the wage rate in the home country is relatively lower, which is WH, okay, before the formation of the regional trading bloc, and their employment is OHL0, okay. So now, if there is a regional trading bloc, then what will happen? The common market, the labor will flow from the low wage country to the high wage country. So what will happen here? LC L0 amount of labor from the low wage country, okay, home country, they will shift to the high wage country, that is, say, foreign country. So ultimately, there will be equalization of the wage rate between the home country and the foreign country. Here, please see, WFC will be equal to WHC, that is, home country wage rate will be equal to the foreign country wage rate, and the equilibrium employment will be up to LC. Now, how they will gain? Please see, when in case of foreign country, the wage rate declines from WF to WFC, and labor employment rises from L0 to LC, OF L0 to OF LC, then what will happen? There is a value of output, okay, rises by an amount of L0 LC EF. This area indicates the value of output rise for the foreign country. And in case of home country, the value of fall in the output will be to the extent of L0 LC EG, okay. So if you compare these two areas, what we'll observe? You will observe that the rise in the value of output is more than the fall in the value of output, and therefore the net gain will be EFG. So through the formation of the common market, both these countries, home country and the foreign country, they will gain. Now, from this discussion, we can ask a question. Can you indicate situations, okay, where free flow of goods between countries would not lead to factor price equalization? Now, coming to the different phases of regionalism, one phase is called as the Old Regionalism. What is that? Regional trade agreements which are signed during 1960s and 1970s, they are considered as Old Regionalism. And contemporary regionalism, the regional trade agreements which are signed since 1990 can be considered as contemporary regionalism. Now, what is the basic difference between the Old Regionalism and contemporary regionalism? In case of contemporary regionalism, what we observe that they are now gaining much from the free multilateral trade agreement, okay, or free trade between nations, particularly in respect of commodities, the goods, okay, because most of the countries, they have adopted some sort of liberal, say, trade policy in respect of commodities, particularly since mid-1970s or early 1980s, okay? So they gain from this. And the next one is, in case of contemporary regionalism as opposed to old regionalism, foreign direct investment is very much important. That is, contemporary regional trade agreement, they give more importance to foreign direct investment. As I have indicated again and again, that for this trading bloc, the most important part is to attract foreign direct investment so as to initiate new areas of investment and output, okay, production. Now, the contemporary regionalism, okay, involves deep integration of economies. Deep integration means they integrate in such a way that their policies are integrated, okay, their external policy as well as the fiscal policies, all these policies are integrated in the sense that they almost all the member nations, they follow similar type of policies, both external policy and internal policy. Now, the question is, from this discussion, can foreign portfolio investment be equally important like foreign direct investment for contemporary regionalism? Please think of this question and try to answer. That means you have to know what is the difference between FPI, foreign portfolio investment, and FDI, foreign direct investment, whether they are equally important for any regional trade agreement. Please try to answer. Now the next one. Several scholars, economists, they consider that the proliferation of regional trade agreements to be a major challenge to the multilateral trade process. Jagadish Bhagwati, a famous economist in 1991, indicated that regionalism embodies a discriminatory characteristic and could induce perverse effect. That means when you undertake regional trading bloc, this is discriminatory in the sense that they are biased. They give more importance to their member nations as opposed to non-member nations. So it is discriminatory in nature. And the question is, if you follow this type of discriminatory attitude in the regional trading agreement, then that will help the world as a whole to lead the world towards multilateral trade, in the long run. The Bhagwati, in his paper in 1995, he has also indicated that within regional groups, the countries with greater power, they gain from the trade liberalization, while the smaller countries lose from the trade liberalization. He also argues that regionalism could increase the risk of conflict between regional trading bloc. So Jagadish Bhagwati is of the opinion that regional trade is not good for the world as a whole, because that leads to conflict, more risk. Now, coming to some other studies, which those studies believe or indicated that most of the regional trade agreements have had trivial role in world trade. Several studies have indicated that some of the big regional trading bloc, just like European Union and NAFTA, if you study the flow of commodities, through trade between the member nations of European Union and NAFTA, and that flow, the share of that trade in those trading blocks as a percentage of the world trade, you will observe that over time that share has decreased. That means the trade flow created by some big trading blocks, that flow as a share of world trade has gradually declined. That means both within the trading bloc and across the trading bloc, that trade flow could not influence much the world trade flow. That means they didn't have significant role in increasing the flow of the world trade. And conversely, some other research works, they perceive that this trading blocks, regional trading blocks, can be considered as a stepping stone, towards the multilateral trade liberalization, And in a particular paper, I have indicated Summers in his research paper 1991. He argues that regional trade liberalization generates an advance on multilateralism and leads to more trade creation than trade diversion. Here I have given from one of the paper of research paper where it has been shown that the share of some of the trading blocks, for example, here please see the European Union, their trade flow, as a percentage of the global trade flow, it started with say about more than 45% in 1960, but gradually, please see the trend, it is gradually declining. Even in case of NAFTA, that has happened. Even in case of EFTA, EFTA means European Free Trade Association. All these regional trading blocks, if you see the trade among those member countries in those trading blocks as a percentage of the world trade flow, that is gradually falling. That means they could not influence too much the world trade flow. So that is another part. Now coming to the demand, the political part of it. That is, what are the political reasons for the formation of regional trading blocks? It's very, very important and very interesting also. The demand for any particular trade policy, say the participation of any country in any regional trading agreement comes from the preference pattern of different socio-economic interest group. For example, there are import competing sector. They want protection, so that is a one interest group. Say within the country there may be export sector. They want free trade, so that is another pressure group. The people at large, they are another pressure group. So if you consider the demand, then the demand indicates the preference pattern of different socio-economic interest groups for that particular regional trade agreement. And what is the supply side? Supply of regional trading agreement, okay, that comes from the preference pattern of the different governments of different countries, okay. Now, unlike the economic market, okay, the political markets are usually imperfectly competitive, in the sense that the entry into that market by the agents, okay, depends on their political affiliation. You cannot easily enter into that political market. Okay, in economic market, if there is free entry, you can easily enter, you can exit. But in a political market, it is very difficult to enter, okay, or exit from that market. Now, these approaches to political economy of trade policy, there are different theoretical approaches. One is called political support function approach. The other is tariff formation approach. Other is median voter approach, campaign contribution approach, and political contribution approach. Okay. Now, first I come to the political support function approach. The political support function approach suggests that any country, okay, while undertaking the regional trading bloc, they have a bias. They have a bias for any particular pressure group. For example, say import competing sector or the export sector. They have a bias. And while undertaking that policy, they not only consider that the benefit of that particular pressure group, but also it also considers the efficiency of the system. That means the policymaker maximizes the function, okay, a function which trades off the gain from the protection to this industry, that pressure group, for example, the import competing industry, against the losses to the general people. Okay, so they consider both the gain as well as loss and the difference they want to maximize, and hence this is called the political support function approach. The next one is tariff formation function approach. This is very interesting. Okay, for example, here I have drawn the diagram. Please see this diagram. On the vertical axis, I have taken up the profit. Horizontal axis, I have indicated the price. Now, if you see this blue curve, it shows that if the government gives more tariff protection to the import competing industry, okay, if the import competing industry gets more tariff protection, then what will happen? Their profit will rise because the competition will be less. Foreigners will come less in your country. So you raise your tariff wall. So the import competing industry will gain more. They will earn more profit. So as you impose more tariff to facilitate your import competing industry, their profit will gradually rise. Here, please see, the profit will rise following this blue line and up to a situation where the profit is monopoly profit, pi m. And when you impose more tariff, the price will also rise. But there is a contrasting impact. When the price rises within the economy, then the people will be annoyed upon you. Why there is inflation? Okay. So when you have, say, support from a particular pressure group, you are losing the support. Government will lose the support from the people at large. Therefore, government will try to adopt a tariff which is politically optimum. So it is called politically optimum tariff as opposed to economic tariff, okay, economically optimum. If the government imposes quota, for example, quota restriction, then the profit of those industries will follow this yellow line. Why? Because quota means your domestic demand is now less than the actual demand schedule. You have a residual demand schedule. If you just think of that model in international trade, if there is quota restriction, you cannot import beyond the limit. So that restricts your profit. Therefore, the profit earned under quota will be less. But if you have a monopoly power, then the price will be higher. So under quota, the price is PQ. But under tariff, the price is a bit less PT. Now, please see this PS curve. This PS curve is called political support index. This index shows a particular utility gained by the government from the different combinations of the political support that it receives from either import competing industry or from the people. If price is higher, you will get less support from the people, but more support from the import competing industry. If price is less, you get more support from the people, but less support from those import competing industry. So different combination of this support will create your political support index. And your political support index, higher the political support index, it will be gainful for you. So your highest equilibrium point is F. That means your politically optimum tariff is PT minus PW. What is PW? World price, where you have that industry has minimum profit. So a politically optimum tariff is PT minus PW as a proportion of PW. In this way, you can explain the tariff formation function, where you actually aim at imposing a tariff which is politically optimum, which will satisfy your political motivation. Now, the median voter approach. It is a direct democracy model where the government feels that most of the people are risk averter. They will neither support autarky, where there is no trade, or extreme, where there is free trade. So neither support for free trade nor for no trade. They are median. That is, they follow the middle path. That means a bilateral trade or regional trade agreement. So that is the median voter approach. But rarely we find this type of, creation of or fixation of tariff on the basis of median voter approach. Now, there are two other approaches: campaign contribution approach and political contribution approach. It implies that normally the pressure groups, they contribute to the political party, they contribute to the government, okay, some contribution, so as to influence the policy in their favor. So this is called campaign contribution or political contribution approach. So in this way, we observe that political pressure, okay, some pressure groups are influencing the policy of the government, so that the tariff policy is not always economically optimum, it becomes politically optimum. Now, coming to the next part, when we observe the politically optimum tariff, which was suggested by economists like Grossman and Helpman in 1995 and Baldwin in 2006. Here we observe that if the government feels, according to them, if the government feels that, the people would benefit more from this tariff policy, then they can, in some cases, they can ignore that pressured lobbies against that particular policy. Okay, it depends on which force is more powerful. Now, coming to the effect, normally we call it a domino effect. Domino effect means if any country, if some of the industries, they feel that if our country doesn't join in any regional trade agreement, then we shall not get any favor from the member countries. So since the other countries in this region, they have joined in this group, so we must also join. So they will create a pressure upon the government, and that is called a domino effect. That means when other countries are joining in a group, then there may be a domino effect that will lead that country to also join in a particular regional trade agreement. Okay, and if this export lobby, for example, instead of import competing industry, if the export lobby is much more stronger than the import competing industry, then there is a fair chance that this country will join. Why the country will join? Because import competing industry, they want more protection, but the export lobby, they want less protection. So if the export lobby is powerful, then there is every possibility, every chance, higher chance that the country will join in that regional trade agreement where they agree to reduce the protection. Now, coming to the theoretical part. Now, if you form a demand function, a demand for protection, which I have indicated by dt, which is a function of the tariff. So as T rises, as your tariff protection rises, then the demand for the protection will also rise, because when you impose more tariff to protect the import competing industry, then the price will rise, they will have more profit, so the demand for protection will also rise. So there is a positive correlation between the demand for tariff and the tariff rate. And there is a minimum demand for protection even when the tariff rate is zero. This is very important. When you draw the diagram, this part is important. Now, there is a cost of tariff also, okay, for the government in terms of efficiency and welfare loss, because we have already discussed that if you impose tariff, the price rises, then there is a loss in terms of consumer surplus, loss in terms of producer surplus. So there is a cost of tariff, and that marginal cost of tariff, if you think of that supply function in a competitive market, in a micro, this your micro concept. What is your supply function? Supply function is nothing but the marginal cost function. So here also, the supply function of tariff is nothing but the marginal cost of tariff protection for the government. So I have denoted it by ST. ST is the supply function of the tariff, which is also a function of tariff. And as tariff rises, the marginal cost of tariff rises. Therefore, supply of tariff will also rise. So these are the two functions. Now coming to the diagram. Here the yellow line indicates the demand for tariff, and this red line indicates the supply of tariff in the first instance. And the intersection point will indicate the equilibrium tariff rate, TUL, that means unilateral tariff rate imposed by the government. And the optimum tariff rate is where the supply is zero. That means a positive optimum tariff rate where the marginal cost of tariff is zero. That means what is optimum tariff rate? When the marginal cost of tariff is zero. Now, this country, okay, facing some sort of pressure from the pressure group, that means we must join in the regional trading bloc. If we do not join, then what will happen? All other countries, okay, they will divert their import from us, because the member countries, they will trade among themselves. So if I am a non-member country, there will be a trade diversion from my country to the other country. So that will raise the cost of, cost for the government. So if that country do not join, then the cost of this tariff will be higher. This country has fixed a tariff rate unilaterally. That will raise its cost, and when the cost rises because of non-joining, without joining any trade agreement, the cost rises, the marginal cost rises up to ST1. Therefore, new intersection point, equilibrium point will be F, and that equilibrium will determine your politically optimum tariff. That means, please see, politically optimum tariff is more than economically optimum tariff, and it is also less than tariff under unilateralism. This is very interesting, okay? Therefore, whenever any country undertakes that regional trade agreement, it must think of the political, pressures or the relative, strength of different pressure groups, and accordingly it will react, and accordingly the tariff rate it will fix is not always the optimum, economically optimum tariff rate, it is politically optimum tariff rate. So this model helps us in understanding that politically, optimum tariff rate. Now, there's a question that I want to ask you. If given the level of politically optimum tariff rate, okay, that I have just explained, if there is sudden increase in the demand for protection, okay, demand for protection coming from different pressure groups, then what would be its impact on the politically optimum tariff? Try to answer this question, draw the diagram and try to answer. Now coming to the next. Now the question, most important question is, can regional trading agreement be considered as a stepping stone towards the multilateral trade? Economic motivations behind regionalism, okay, through the formation of regional trade agreement is inherently discriminatory. As we have indicated again and again, this is inherently discriminatory in the sense that that gives more favor to the member countries as opposed to the non-member countries, okay? And they sometimes follow the protectionist trade policy, protectionist policy for non-member countries. Most of these regional trading blocs practice unanimous regionalism instead of open regionalism. Unanimous regionalism, as I have already explained you, when any non-member country wants to be a member of this trading bloc, then the existing members must be unanimously agree for that accession. That is called unanimous regionalism. Most of these trading blocs, they follow this unanimous regionalism as opposed to open regionalism. Okay, they do not follow open, but open regionalism is what is required for multilateral trade. So, regional trading bloc with unanimous regionalism cannot be considered as a stepping stone towards multilateral trade. As a result, it becomes difficult for any regional trading bloc to merge with another bigger trading bloc, and hence they are in contradiction with the principle of globalization and liberalization. Moreover, the contemporary this bilateralism and regionalism have not incorporated the unconditional most favored nation. Okay, they will give you say favorable treatment, but under some condition. So that cannot be a multilateralism. Now, Jagadish Bhagavati is of the opinion, famous economist, he is of the opinion that when the regional trading blocs, some of them are overlapping, okay, and that is called as spaghetti bowl effect. Okay, they have say overlapping. This country is a member of different trading blocs, so that creates a spaghetti bowl effect. And Baldwin, in 2006, their paper, he suggests that yes, that problem, that spaghetti bowl effect, can be overcome through Juggernaut effect and domino effect. This is very important, very fascinating word, Juggernaut effect. Juggernaut effect is actually Jagannath effect. One foreign economist, okay, he has used this. So they cannot spell Jagannath, so they have spelled it Juggernaut. What is Juggernaut effect? Juggernaut effect is when the common people, they want the country to become a member of the regional trading bloc. So that is called Juggernaut effect. And the domino effect, when a particular pressure group, any particular industry, that wants that joining of that particular government in a trading bloc, that is called domino effect. When we follow open regionalism, and when this Juggernaut effect and domino effect become powerful, then it becomes easy for the country when it say undertakes any say trading bloc with open regionalism. That can only be the way, that can only be the path towards multilateral trade. So after this discussion, this module, the take-home points are: there are dynamic gains from regional trade bloc compared to the old regionalism. The contemporary regionalism emphasizes more on FDI, and despite the increase in the number of regional trade agreements, their share in the global trade didn't increase over time. So not only economic factors, but also political factors are also important, responsible for determining the optimum tariff, rather the politically optimum tariff. And regional trade agreements based on open regionalism only can lead to multilateral trade. Thank you so much for joining this module.